Hello and welcome to the Hole in My Heart podcast. This is episode 245, a new tool for helping the next generation.
Yes, welcome to the Hole in My Heart podcast, where we talk about how the gospel is good news for everyone, every day. I'm your host, Lori Krieg, and we're coming at you from the lovely WCSG radio studio. I don't have Matt with me. He had clients and children. My kids haven't gone back to school yet. Probably by the time this aired, I pray and hope and trust and believe. But I do have next to me the most professional radio voice among us, and my friend, producer Steve. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here. Hi, guys. This is going to be an exciting conversation. Looking forward to it.
I love talking with my friend, Preston Sprinkle. Our theme for this fall is healthy disciples making healthy disciples. So some of that is talking about the human sexuality conversation. And so Preston and I spent the better part of 6 months writing and filming with a film crew and more editing people and some amazing people, this new project called Christian Sexuality, Raising Kids. It's for parents of kids 12 and under to really equip the next generation with a gospel vision for human sexuality. And he's going to talk about it. I might have been the primary writer and the one mostly in front of the camera, but he helped to edit, offering so much, as well as got in front of the camera as well. But who is Preston Sprinkle?
Well, Preston is a biblical scholar, best-selling author, and president of the Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender. He hosts the popular Theology in the Raw podcast and has written numerous books, including Embodied and People to be Loved. Preston is passionate about helping Christians navigate questions of faith, sexuality, and culture with both truth and grace.
With that, let's officially welcome Preston to the show. Welcome, Presto. How you doing?
Good to be here, Lauro. What do you have a nickname? Do you have a shortened?
I know. Well, see, Greg Coles, our mutual colleague, I call him Grigorovich. And then I think it's from Harry Potter.
I think it is, yeah.
He's a bad guy, actually. But in your Presto, he hasn't quite come up with one yet. So I'll wait for the nickname.
Okay.
But hey, you know how we do. This is not your first rodeo with podcasts, or specifically even ours, but we always ask a less intense, kind of goofy question at the beginning so our audience can get to know our guests in a little bit of a different way. So here we go. Which from the following list would you remove? One has to go. This is all fall themed. Okay, jumping in a pile of freshly raked leaves, apple picking on a crisp fall day, wearing cozy sweaters, or drinking your favorite fall warm drink, pumpkin spice or otherwise, doesn't have to be. What has to go, Preston?
I would say jumping in leaves. While when I was 11 years old, that was tons of fun. Now, piles of leaves typically get wet and moldy. There's bugs in there. So I'm much more aware of what the whole experience will entail, jumping in leaves. So I'm ready to ditch that one. And also, I love all the other ones you mentioned. So let's keep those.
Let's keep those. All right, Steve, which listener response stood out to you?
Yeah, Callie agrees. Leaves for sure. They are itchy and can't hold a full-grown adult. You just land hard on the bottom. So
hard on the tailbone.
Yeah.
I agree with Callie. I have found too many slugs in the leaves that my kids are like, yay, do it again. And I'm like, this is just gross and painful. All right. I am not going to ask you the whole gospel question that we've asked you several times. I just want to hear how the gospel's been good news for you lately. That's the reason we do this podcast, to talk about how the gospel's been good news for everybody, every day, including you, Preston Sprinkle. So if part of the gospel is I'm more sinful and flawed in myself than I ever dared believe, yet at the very same time, I am more loved and accepted in Jesus Christ than I ever dared hope. When is that gospel? How's it been good news for you lately?
Oh, man. It's a good question. There's several answers I could give. Let me, I guess, maybe turn it a little bit global. Anybody that pays attention to the news, as I do, can get so overwhelmed, so much destruction and bad things happening all over the place, right? And to know that the gospel is the good news that Jesus is king of the world, that he's not a tribal deity who reigns over a certain territory, but is at work and reigning over the world. That is the really the only way in which I can have hope when I look at what's going on in the world today.
Yep. Let's just all cry together now because it's so true. Cry with grief and gratitude. So true.
Mm-hmm. Grief and gratitude. Yep. Yep.
So coming up, you're I think just like in a few days, your biggest discipleship project releases. How did this come about? Tell us about it, and where did it all come from?
Well, I feel a little weird answering this question because Lori has taken the lead on this project and put so much time and energy into it, and this project wouldn't have happened without Lori. So thank you 1,000 times, Lori. At the center, the nonprofit that Lori and I help run, we try to create resources to address issues around sex, sexuality, gender, as a whole. And we've addressed so many of those areas. We've helped parents with LGBTQ kids. We help pastors navigate these questions. We have helped people wrestling with their own sexuality. We produce a resource directed to them. We've helped youth pastors, youth, and all across the board. And over the last few years, we've been getting a lot of emails from parents saying, okay, how do I talk to my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, my 2-year-old? Do I talk to my 3-year-old about these things? I need help. The world that we're living in is completely different than the world I grew up in and anything the world has ever seen. I don't know how to do this parenting thing. So that was a consistent plea. And so I would say 2-3 years ago, we're like, all right, we need to produce a comprehensive resource that will help parents with young kids, 0 to 12, to navigate questions around faith, sexuality, and gender with their kids. And as I kept thinking about the project, I literally got cold sweats. I'm like, I don't think I don't think I'm the person to do that. This is a daunting project. And then knowing that Lori has already been living this conversation with kids in that age range and also has put a tremendous amount of study and research into the topic. I was like, Lori, if it's not you, I don't know who it's going to be. So here you are.
Well, I was glad God was talking to me at the same time. He was talking to you because it did take some energy on my part and a lot of prayer to say yes. Mm-hmm. I'd like to hear your side of that. Why was it scary and hard, and why did it elicit cold sweats in you?
It's scary and hard for a few reasons. Number one, I have not read, I don't know, I might have read half a parenting book in my whole life. It's just, and that's more of a confession than a promotion. Thinking through parenting has been much more on the fly, experiential, leaning on my wife, learning from my wife. So I just don't feel, and I'm a researcher at heart. I like to have both experience and knowledge. And I was like, I just don't have a lot of knowledge here. A lot of my parenting has been kind of intuitive, maybe doing what wasn't done to me growing up, but it wasn't, I look back and I just see just a slew of mistakes and gosh, if I had to do over again, I would have done this different, that different. So I didn't feel like I had the experience, I've helped raise 4 kids, but I still didn't have I wouldn't say mature experience that I could say, oh, we did this is great, we're going to pass this on to others. It's kind of we as our mutual friend Claire DeGraff says, we were fixing a flat tire on a rolling car in our parenting. And I would want somebody who has the experience, they've thought through this and tried to implement robust discipleship as best they can, and who is well acquainted with what are the experts saying as well. So since I had neither, since I knew you had both, I mean, Lori, literally, I was like, if Lori can't do this, I don't know if we're gonna do this project. 'Cause I don't know who else I would want to take the lead on this.
Well, it was really exciting, and it was exciting to see who we got on board. which just kind of give a little lay of the land. And then I know you want to dive into some of the nitty gritty. Just give what is the project, who's a part of it, in addition to me and Matt at times hosting.
Yeah. So in addition to you two, we wanted to have a blend of other voices, some of whom had a certain kind of expertise, psychological, psychiatric, counseling, like they have kind of professional expertise, and also voices that aren't necessarily professionals, but have just either are or have been in the trenches of navigating these conversations with their kids. So, and we wanted voices, at least some voices that people would recognize, so that they, it's a scary conversation. So that there needs to be some sort of like credibility, some sort of like, oh, I recognize that person. I trust what they have to say about other things. So maybe they are going to be helpful in this area. So, we got, Jackie Hill and Preston Perry have, they have 4 kids, and they are very public in this conversation. And so they have had to, integrate, They didn't have the option of not talking to the kids about this. It's just from day one, this is built into their parenting, and they, obviously have really sharp things to say. John Mark Comer has done a great job navigating faith and culture, like a really great job as a parent himself. Other people like Dan Allender is obviously like the master Yoda of, trauma and child rearing. And John Tyson has done he wrote one of the best discipleship kind of curriculum for raising sons, so who else? Kurt Thompson's an expert in shame, and several others that's like they bring something to the table that will really enhance this project.
And it's intended for parents and discipling their kids, and we're talking like pre-adolescent, like what's the age range? Like it's younger than 12. Where are we talking about starting?
Yeah, younger than 12. We would even say 0 to 12. Like, okay. At first we're kind of like, maybe 6 to 12, but no, like these conversations actually need to be built into the rhythm of our parenting from day one. And we talk about what that looks like with your 1-year-old. So it's an 8-part video series. I would say it's a video-based discipleship experience for parents with kids 0 to 12, or parents that will have kids in that age range. I mean, if somebody is like pregnant with their first kid, I would say best case scenario, it'd be parents that can go through the series before they're in this age range. But goodness, if you have kids 5, 7, and 9, and you feel like, I don't know what I've been doing so far, this would be a massive, massive help. It's never too late. To start the conversation. So it's each video is anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes. Lori and Matt are the main hosts. So they kind of form the backbone of the teaching, but then we integrate other voices in to give different voices, but congruent perspectives that kind of align with the main narrative that's being taught, and all kinds of supplemental resources. I mean, it really is a massive, holistic, really thoughtful, aesthetically extremely well done discipleship experience.
What would you say is like the biggest need for parents with kids, in that age, under 12 right now, in terms of just discipling them in sexuality?
I would say it's the two biggest questions, I think, are how and when. How and when to have these conversations. And this, obviously, the sex talk is kind of the big one that comes up, but it's more than that. Yeah. It's, how and when do you talk to your kid about his lesbian kindergarten teacher? How and when do you talk to your kid when they're asked what pronouns they are in 3rd grade? How and when do you talk about sex with your kid who is probably in a post-internet age going to hear about it at a pretty young age? So okay, I know I need to talk about it, but gosh, how do I talk about sex to a pre-12-year-old, to an 8-year-old? Do I talk to a 6-year-old? Is that too young? What do I say? Is this too graphic? Is this not graphic enough? I think these are questions I think every single parent has. And this resource provides really clear, specific answers to those key questions.
Talk to us about why why younger? Why talk to kids younger? What's the research show? What's some of the reasons we gave?
There's several reasons. Let me think of the top. I would say the top two in my mind would be number one, psychologists have this phrase, the anchoring bias. And what that is kids will tend to see as authoritative the person they hear about something from first. It's like the gold standard by which to measure other people they hear about something from first. So, for instance, if your son is on the playground and little Johnny, as he's swinging from the monkey bars at 6 years old, starts talking about sex because his 14-year-old brother showed him porn, and so this 6-year-old is talking about sex and maybe even in graphic ways, or maybe it's not so dramatic. Maybe it's a little more innocent. They're just talking about the category of sex on some level. And if little Johnny on this monkey bars, who maybe is like a cool kid, everybody wants to be like Johnny, and your son is going to be like, that's going to be his anchoring bias. And then if you wait like 4 years to talk about sex, he's going to measure what you say against Johnny's profound 6-year-old wisdom, or if they hear something in the classroom at kindergarten or first grade, which in some public schools is not abnormal, that's going to be the foundation, the anchor by which they're going to measure other things from. So, I mean, I don't know about you, Lori, but when I grew up, these conversations definitely were happening in the classroom, on the playground. I mean, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th grade for sure, but it wasn't happening at such a younger age now. So because our kids are growing up in a world where they're going to hear about this topic at a much younger age than we did, that alone justifies us having age-appropriate, tasteful, but clear and explicit conversations about sex and sexuality at a younger age. There's also the horrific reality of pornography. I read somewhere that the porn industry targets 9-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Like that's an age, like whatever the algorithm means for a 9-year-old, they want to reach that person to get them hooked so that when they go through puberty, they end up coming back to it. The stats better than I do, Lori. What's the average, or what percentage? Yeah, what's the percentages when young people first are exposed to porn on average?
It's like 15% by the age of 10, and that some people say it's way higher than that. So at least 15% see it by the age of 10. It's at least 50% by the age of 13, and it's 70 to 90% by 17. So kids are being exposed and seeing it younger and younger, and then that can lead them to more intense things.
Yeah. So if pornography is your kid's first exposure to sex, that quite literally is a traumatic experience.
Yep.
And it's impossible to completely protect your kids from porn, even if you have blockers, even if you I guess unless you're living on some commune with no internet and no friends or anything. I mean, maybe, I don't know, even then somehow it slips in. But so if your child is exposed to porn but you have that anchoring bias, and you've already told them ahead of time, like if you ever see, for instance, an image of a private part, come talk to me. You will not get in trouble. Come talk to me. If your kid is exposed to porn at a young age or at an age, and their immediate reaction is, "Oh, I need to go talk to mom. I need to go talk to dad," that will only happen if you've had prior conversations with them. They're not gonna naturally say, "Ooh, I want to go tell mom what I said," unless your kid knows mom is the safest person. I've already been told about what to do in this situation, so now I know what to do in this situation. It's still a traumatic experience, but goodness, I think you can disciple a kid much better, again, if you have that prior anchoring bias through prior conversations.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then sadly too, I was sexually abused before I learned about what sex was. And so that was my anchoring bias. And so the stats there too, we talk about this in the film project too, is how to prevent childhood sexual abuse. But then if that is your anchor to God's beautiful design for sex, that is going to be terrible. It's 1 out of 4 girls, 1 out of 10 guys experience unwanted sexual contact by the time they're 18. So if we can get ahead of it and both help do preventative work as against sexual abuse, as well as be like, that was an aberration. This is God's beautiful design that could really help shape a generation's mind.
And you would agree, right, Lori, that it's impossible to 100% protect all your kids from potential sexual abuse. Like, it is
impossible. I had more conversations with Dan Allender. He's like, after we interviewed him, he's like, Lori, the facts of the matter are you cannot prevent how people look at and objectify your kids.
Jeez, yeah.
And that was a really hard pill to swallow. And he says that on the film project too. And it's like, that's really sad. But hopefully we can prevent some of the physical harm. But what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, but I do think you can reduce that percentage through intentional discipleship. Honestly, Lori, I as you are, I'm just so incredibly horrified.
I know.
At the reality of the sexual abuse of kids, especially when the percentages are like not just high, but like it's often like a close friend, a family member. I mean, it sickens my stomach. If this resource can help reduce that percentage through proper preparation, training, so that kids can read a situation, they know how to get out of a situation, they can identify somebody who's not safe. All that comes with that has to happen through proper parental discipleship, And again, I'm not looking for 100% prevention. I think that's unrealistic, but I would love to know. I don't think we'll ever be able to measure it, Lori, but it would be cool to like be able to see like, because somebody used this resource, X amount of potential situations were avoided because there was proper training. God will only know that percentage, that number, but I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Have we talked about how we have this conversation with kids without traumatizing them? Like, and you said tastefully and yet, honestly and truthfully, like, how do you find that place of I guess, tastefulness and not being overly traumatic?
Honestly, that was the biggest question I had that I didn't have the answer to. So like I did in the resource, I'm going to do now. And I'm going to punt to Lori.
Yeah.
Because you've not only thought through this way longer than I have, but you articulate this in the video so well. Would you mind answering the question for me?
I know, right? Oh, you're so funny. I know. Well, it is true. And I had the same question too. Like, Steve, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, we interviewed some guys on when to start, like, how do you prevent porn? Remember they said, they're like, you need to start talking about sex with your kids in a gospel way, ages 6 to 10. And I was like, I need a minute. We were on air. So I have had to do my own internal work. How you do it, if we're really to hear it, you're going to have to just get the film project. But it's in a gospel lens. And I don't just say that to be like, oh, good, you said the Christian word, so now we can have our brains turn off, and that just made it all better. No, truly, Preston, we were talking about this yesterday on your podcast, so you interviewed me on your Theology in the Raw. When you put sex, sexuality, marriage, singleness back in its original intent, it takes the sexiness out of it. It's not like graphic, and it's the pornification of the human imagination that makes sex so sexy and vulgar. That is not God's design. So we're not going to talk about it with our kids like googly eyed and be like, oh, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. We don't need to do that. We could talk about it we can put it back in the theological space that it is. And you can do it in simple, age-appropriate ways that help your kids understand it theologically and then biologically. And I've had all the conversations, how you talk about sex, gender, marriage, porn, preventing childhood sexual abuse. I've talked with my kids at 10, 8, and 5 about all of these things. A 5-year-old hasn't gotten the primary sex talk yet, little ones. None of them were capital T or lowercase t traumatized. Some of them were like, this is weird. Why are you telling me this? But one was like, oh, can you show me, like, how does the body work? What does sperm look like? What does, it's more biological. Yeah. And then because our home is preaching the gospel, we're talking about it all the time. This was just another piece of the greater gospel narrative. So that's how you de-sexify sex conversations, is put it back in the gospel.
What she said, basically.
Anything you'd add to that, Presto?
I really do. I mean, no, I don't think so. I think your experience speaks volumes too. I mean, you have actually done this, navigated that balance, and you didn't traumatize your kids. I will say, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I don't know if I agree with this, but I was gonna say, better to err on the side of being too explicit than not talking at all. I don't know if we want to shoot for erring at all, but I think. At that age, too, it's not like they're raging with hormones where their sexual engines are just raging. They are, I think, when also, Lori, because you talk a lot about like naming body parts from day one. Like, so the words penis, vagina aren't like, oh my gosh, what do we?
No.
It's like, oh no, this is just like the word, tree or duck and vagina and, penis. And it's like, these are just words that identify normal, non-shameful parts of life. And so
Totally.
It's not so like, oh my gosh, what are we talking about,
Right. That helps. Okay, a little like a softball question. What was your favorite conversation we had on set? Or what was one of your favorite like set moments?
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest here.
Sure.
And I've already told you this many times, Lori.
What?
I knew you were an incredible speaker on stage. You're a great speaker, podcast host and everything. But doing videos is a different animal. People that don't do videos, you don't understand how incredibly difficult it is to read from a teleprompter, be yourself, and make it look lively and natural. It is such a narrow gift. And I was just dumb. I was sat there as you were doing the videos on a teleprompter, and it's like, is she even reading the script? Didn't it look like you're reading a script? It was like, oh my word. Like your naturalness and liveliness was honestly the most enjoyable thing, sitting there through the recordings.
Thanks, Preston.
And I would say that if you weren't here. I promise you. I'm not just trying to like
butter me up on my own podcast. No, it really was fun. Those 2 weeks, I was hanging around Greg Coles and I and you, and like, having lunch with Dan Allender as he's telling us about his drug dealing days. It was, we walked away from those 2 weeks. We literally flew all over the country, and we were like, that was shockingly easy and so much fun. It was just like the Spirit poured out his joyful blessing over us, and we just had a ball. So
I love the all day hanging out with people, even the film crew and Steven,
they're awesome.
and having lunch together. Yeah, those are fun times. They're exhausting. They're a ton of work, but
exhausting.
Loads of fun.
So fun.
I'm just thinking of the bloopers or the outtakes that got to exist somewhere. So I have a question about, just with your research, both of you, and where you see things trending. And I know, like, the great thing about always bringing things back to the gospel is no matter how much this thing changes and morphs, and, the just whole sexuality conversation, wherever it's going, we can always come back to that. But just because I'm curious, like, where do you guys see how do you see the conversation, the sexuality conversation changing, like in the next decade, next 5-10 years? And how would you recommend that parents like prepare for that? I've got a son who's expecting his first child, and I just think of him, how would you just recommend people prepare now for what's to come?
It's a great question. I can give a few thoughts, and Laura, I'd love to hear yours. For one, I don't think we could take for granted certain things, like, well, for instance, like, even sex before marriage, sexual activity before marriage. Even if your kid is like, following Jesus and has conservative values, I think that one, we just kind of took it for granted, right? Mm-hmm. And I would say, the Bible's crystal clear on things like, or I shouldn't even say, like adultery, right? Mm-hmm. But two consensual people who are not married to anybody else having sex is less. I hope this is okay if I say that. I think it's less clear than something like adultery. I think the Bible teaches it. I think it's built into the theology of what sex and marriage is even for. I think it's assumed in the Greek word for sexual immorality. But it's, I think you can't just rely on, if you want to instill that value in your kid, because it's so just common and it's just not a big deal. I feel like when we grew up, Lori, it was kind of like, smoking, okay, swearing, okay, those are bad, all these things. But if you have sex, that's like just, that's like doing heroin. That's like, oh, you're doing like the big sins. Oh my gosh,
For sure.
But now it's like, no, it's like I had a cigarette, I had sex, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I'll try not to. But it's just not. Yep. You don't have the fear of this being a big deal kind of hovering over your kids. So that's one. Obviously, there's always going to be different kinds of sexual relationships that may be more popular now than they, or maybe more popular in the future than they are now. Polyamory is on the rise. I think the intersection between technology and sex, as sexual freedom and experimentation keeps growing, which it is, and as technology keeps growing, which it is, between VR sex, AI stuff, robot sex, there's stuff on the horizon that I think it could be a challenge. I would say it will range from, wow, this is a new challenge, to this could destroy us as humanity. So yeah, I think just being always, but again, it comes back to not necessarily being an expert in all these future possible things, but just keep grounding your kids in God's vision for our sexuality, and you ground people in that vision in a robust, healthy, compelling way, and then whatever new thing comes around the corner, they have a foundation from which to, evaluate it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer other than it's disturbing reading all the relationships between AI and people, and not like on some subculture news source, but I was just reading one the other day about, one was treating AI as its therapist, and then the AI had no regulation to report this woman, seemed like from a very affluent family. She was living her dream. She just like climbed a huge mountain and was like on the outside looking great. But having this conversation with AI, it doesn't report her plan, helps her write a suicide note, and then she ends her life. And what was tragic even for the parents is they're like, even her suicide note wasn't in her voice because she asked AI to write it for her to like diminish their pain. And this was the New York Times. This wasn't like some random pop-up I got on people.com or something. But I'm concerned about people and our relationships, sexual, relational, just that huge new study that's been coming out that we're getting less conscientious and we're less conscientious and dumber, for lack of a better term. I just showed my own stupidity coming out, and I remember the exact word, but just, and more narcissistic. And so I just literally, Matt and I this morning were like, how are we going to help our kids cultivate friendships with kids who are not screen addicted and who have their own brain inside their heads, not sharing it with AI pets. You can get AI, watches and stuffed animals. How are we going to help our kids cultivate friendships, let alone potential romantic relationships? So I, as a mom with younger kids, and I can envision as a grandparent right now, it's easy to get scared, but exactly right. Thanks for preaching the gospel right back to us, Preston. The stuff is the same. The stuff may change, but the gospel's the same. So let's just keep returning, and let's put some boundaries, especially around technology, in my opinion.
Yes.
On that note, Preston, how do you and Chris, your wife, Chris, how do you guys battle anxiety as parents?
Not very well. That's a good question. We do battle it. I think Chris, just in general, might have a harder time with anxiety than I do. I would err on the side of, I don't know what the opposite would be. Just like, I don't know what the opposite, but not like maybe freaking out. But then sometimes her anxiety will drive her towards more action, where my lack of anxiety might drive me to less action, which is why I think we really work well together, because we balance each other out, I think, in healthy ways. It's going to sound cliche, but I think it's just true, is our anxiety will go down the more we genuinely trust God with our kids. We have 3 kids now that are 18 or over, one's 16. So our 3 daughters are 18, 20, 22. And they're, 18 and over. Not that that's a magical cutoff, but when they're 18, they're out of the house. It's kind of like, regardless of our faults and failures, the good things we did, the bad things we did, they're in God's hands. We are now not in the same kind of authoritative position. Now we're more of a position of influence, Now we don't assert our advice. It's kind of like, hey, we'd love to give it if you want it, but if you don't want it, like, you're going to do what you're going to do. So we have to kind of live with, our kids making their own decisions, and sometimes they make amazing decisions. And sometimes we're like, I wish you wouldn't have made that decision, but you're going to have to, that's real life too. Like,
right.
It's not actually, it would actually be devastating for them if we just kept hovering the helicopter over them as helicopter parents, as they leave the house and we're just hovering over, it's like, that's just not, they need to make their own decisions and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. We all do. We would all say as adults, right? Like, we are who we are because we learned from bad mistakes we made. Like, those are an essential part of our story. And we would have been worse people if we didn't learn from the bad mistakes we made. So as parents, we have to come to grips with the tough truth that we don't want to withhold from our kids the very things that made us the people that we are. So that's hard. That's super hard, because when I look at my daughters, they're still in diapers in my eyes,
Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
Kind of along those lines, as I'm just thinking about people who are listening and maybe, a little bit older, maybe like me, their kids are grown or are kind of, about to launch into that next stage. And maybe this parent feels like they missed the boat, on this conversation or other things. Like, could you just offer a word of encouragement? Earlier, you said it's never too late, but just for that person who is feeling like, I missed my chance. How would you encourage that parent?
That's really good question. In my heart, because I have a lot of those regrets. I constantly look back and I wish I would have done that. I wish I didn't do that. I wish I did more of this or less of that. And that's such a hard, depressing place to be as a parent. I would, first of all, your story is, your journey is your journey, and you can't relive your previous journey, and that's fine. God can work with all kinds of journeys, as he does all throughout Scripture. It's never too late if you need to apologize for something as a parent. I think that goes a long way with kids. And kids, somebody told me this recently when I was like, gosh, I just feel like there's so many things I wish I would have done better as a dad. And this guy smiled at me and said, older guy, it was actually Max Lucado, just got to name drop a little bit. He
I
said,
don't know who he was.
it's on a podcast I had with him. And he just said, kids are resilient too. Like he's like, I know you, Preston. I know you well enough to know you didn't screw up your kids. Like, it's not like I'm sure you're a good dad. Could you have been better? Sure. Could you have done worse? I'm sure too. And kids are resilient. Kids are really resilient. And I found that to be true, So yeah, there's no point in beating yourself up. Your kids are in God's hand. Your kids are in God's hands when they're under your roof. When they're out of the roof, they're definitely in God's hands. And that's a good place to be. So put your hope there.
Help us land the plane for the parents of kids 12 and under. And they're like, should I get this resource? What's it going to give them?
I'm a terrible salesperson. I hate sleazy salespeople. But let me just say this. We created this resource, and let me just be totally frank. Like I hate creating cheesy resources. So we're big on, hey, whatever it's going to cost, let's produce the best resource out there. If there's another resource out there, then we don't need to do it. As we looked around, we didn't see something like what we produce. So, I think this is questions around faith, sexuality, gender, and all that comes with it. In the world we're living in now, this is some of the most pressing discipleship challenges facing Christians today. So this is not just some sidebar conversation. This is essential work we need to do as parents in raising our kids. So if you check out a resource, I'm sure the link is in the show notes.
Yep.
If you're like, I found another resource that I like better, then fantastic. Go. Just do something though. Do something that will help you disciple your kids in this conversation.
Love it. Yes, the link is in the show notes. Preston, thanks so much for encouraging us, all parents and all disciple makers out there. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, well, we said an official goodbye to Preston, or as I call him, Presto Sprinkle. No, they do need to come up with a good nickname for me.
Yes.
We are going to link to this resource as well as other resources that you can find, including joining the Hole in My Heart podcast Facebook group where you can answer our question of the week. But Steve, a question for you. What just stood out to you from what Preston said?
I think one thing is not new. We've heard it several times already that this is a conversation. This isn't like a one and done. This is something we just kind of like normalize from early so that it's just built into the relationship with parents and kids. So that was the one that was just like another just kind of reaffirmation of that. But the other thing was just what he said there at the end, also not something I've heard for the first time, which was if you need to apologize for something, don't be afraid to apologize for something. As a parent, just go for it. If you're feeling that conviction, if you're feeling that regret, whatever it is, like you can bring that out with your kids, and God can do some pretty amazing things with that vulnerability and that honesty. So, yeah.
I feel that. I think I was listening to another podcast this week, Lisa Turker's Therapy and Theology, and the resident therapist on there, he was like, 2 things that people got to pay for, parents got to pay for. 1, education. 2, therapy. For their kids.
Okay.
I was like, it's just the way he said it.
Text my parents right now.
Yeah, I know, right? There you go.
Send them a bill. I'm kidding.
Truly, though, what it helped me think is I think I spend so much energy being like, how can I prevent the most harm in my kids? How can I curb me sitting on them as much as I can so they spend less time in therapy? But there is an element of grace to that, to not be like, oh, whatever, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow they go to therapy. It's today, how can I just be like, Lori, accept the grace? Preston was saying that. And plan on them needing to deal with some stuff because of you, sinner. You sin and you're loved and accepted, as we say in the gospel, but also just plan on it. We screw them up. So that's a really fun ending. We do have a question of the week for next time. I'm still going to do one has to go because this just made me laugh. Sometimes I like to just make myself laugh. Okay. One has to go. Trucks, minivans, mom SUVs. You know what I'm talking about. Those big Yukons. If you drive one, I love you and I'm probably jealous of you, but whatever. You maybe have to go. Or EVs, electric vehicles. I wasn't going to put down Teslas because people have a lot of feeling about Teslas right now. So truck, minivan, mom SUVs, or electric vehicles, one has to go. Steve, what are you saying?
So golf carts are electric vehicles.
Oh,
would
facts.
that include golf carts?
Do you have a vendetta against golf carts?
No, not at all. I'm just looking out for the golfers. I would say minivans. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, they're gross, and I drive one. They're terrible. I would rather take.
We drove
cool
them for
SUV.
years, so
They like you can buy them brand new, and they come pre-Cheerio'd and Cheez-Its. Just grind in.
Sippy cup, slow leak of milk going into the carpet. Yep.
Doesn't matter what you do.
Yep.
Although I do think truck drivers, I know you are one, and so is my husband, or he was.
Yeah.
You all have a personality on the road that sometimes bothers me. Anyway, if you like this podcast, including this conversation we're having right now, please take the time to rate and review it. That helps other people find it. Thank you for joining us. For all of you on YouTube, thanks for watching. For you listening, thank you for listening. Thank you to WCSG for hosting, the Zach of all trades for Zach of all tradesing, and to Bethany Sanderson, who is our video editor. We appreciate you. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks to Preston. I'll see him in another meeting probably soon. And for all of us here at the Whole America Podcast, we'll see you next time.